Hello there, Miles on Cars. Well, I made it. Part 3. Maybe there'll be a part 4. I don't know. In any case, if you watch the first and second parts, you'll see that I was trying to drive this car from California to Indiana. And I made it. So that's the story. That's the super short version. I made it like no problem. It was just smooth as glass the whole way, going California. What did I see? What did I do now? See California, across Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, the Panhandle through Amarillo, into Oklahoma, the Oklahoma Turnpike from Oklahoma City to Tulsa, and then to Joplin, where the turnpike ends in crossing into Missouri, and then up 44 to St. Louis. Well, actually 44 starts in Oklahoma City and goes all the way up to St. Louis. So I did basically 40 to 44 and then 70 from St. Louis to Indy. So I made it about 2,100 miles. Do a little walk around here. Not sure what else to show you, but I'm going to do show a couple more things about the actual car. But the trip was fairly, I would say, almost kind of boring. I mean, there was no dramatic mechanical shenanigans by the side of the road where I was desperate to fix it and I'm going to get stuck by the side of the road and call AAA and bail me out and all that kind of stuff. There was none of that. Although the other day when I took it to a local cruise night down in Greenwood, south of Indy, actually the battery died on me. It was I think it was I can't remember if I think it was either an O'Reilly or a AutoZone battery, but I'm not complaining and knocking the battery. The date on it was October of 21, so it lasted more than 4.5 years. But it was funny because I started the car and then pulled over to check my phone, and then 3 minutes later, I go to start it and click, click, nothing. So I got a jump and barely made it back here to where I'm staying here in Indy, and then yesterday I went to Walmart and bought a new battery for it, a 1-year battery they have a 1-year one, you get it for about $80 with a core. You know, this car actually had a Group 24, but I went to a Group 26, which is somewhat smaller and quite a bit lighter. So that's what's in it now. I'll show you, you'll see it under the hood when I pop the hood. Anyway, back to the trip. Just ran like a Swiss watch. The only issue I had was in Terre Haute. I filled up on my last tank of gas, and it started kind of sputtering off idle. It's got a little flat spot on the carburetor, and I'm no carburetor expert, but in any case, it was really kind of running weird off of idle. It was like I was on the highway, cruising in 5th gear out of Terre Haute on the way, the last leg of the trip, and it was doing this kind of a fluttering you'd lift off on the gas and it would sort of go into a miss mode. I mean, I don't know. In any case, then what I did is I downshifted it to 4th and just matted it and ran it up to about 4,000 RPM in 4th for a few seconds, and then clicked it back to 5th, and the problem went away. So it's been running perfectly ever since, and that's the lay of the land on that. So it was just, it was really kind of an uneventful trip across, 7-8 states? California, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, Oklahoma, Missouri, Illinois, Indiana. So 7 or 8, basically, Route 66 to St. Louis, and then instead of going north on I-55 up to Chicago, which is sort of the interstate version of Route 66 these days, I stayed on 70 and went right into Indy. So, but the real interesting thing, I think I said in my previous video when I was stopped there in Adrian, Texas, I think I said something along the lines of, maybe I'm lucky to be pulling down about 17 miles a gallon. I was really thinking I was only going to get about 15, but I did, not to brag, but I did way better than that. And it wasn't me that did it. It was the 5-speed. And so when you take a 325 gear, the rear 325 gear ratio in the 8-inch, which I believe is the original rear gear ratio for this car according to the door tag. I know it's originally an 8-inch rear end. And then the 6.3 overdrive in a T5Z trans, That, by the way, the T5, the letter Z, is a reference to the part number of the Ford Racing T5Z, which is sort of the best aftermarket T5. If you're wondering what that part number is, you wanted to look it up. The part number is M as in Michael -7003-Z as in zebra. That's the part number for a T5Z, M7003Z. And so all the transmission places have those. Modern Driveline, which, you know, kind of a shout out to those guys again, because they're the ones I bought the kit from. But everybody else has it too. Silver Sport, Hanlon, Tick, you know, anybody, Ford Racing, D&D Performance, you know, I think even Summit and Jags, you know, all of them have a T5Z, the brand new 5-speed. It ended up costing me quite a bit of money because I ended up buying a brand new transmission rather than a used rebuilt one. But the other thing too that I went ahead and did that was because Modern Driveline offers an S10 truck style tail shaft housing, which they included on the transmission. I had to pay for it, another $800. So the transmission was upwards of $3,000. And on a Falcon, the reason you have to do that is the shifter needs to go forward several inches. I think it's 6 or 7 inches versus a stock tail shaft housing on a T5, which is basically, you know, it goes right up for a Mustang. Like any 65 to 70 Mustang, that T5 goes right into the car. But on a Falcon, it's different because the shifter needs to go forward for either the bench seat or the console. But actually, more importantly, the Falcon has a support brace. There's a support sort of bar in the tunnel that the Mustangs don't have. And if you don't go to the different tail shaft housing on a Falcon, then you end up having to cut that support that would be in the way of the shifter box on a T5. So, and anyway, back to my deal on driving. I kept track of all the receipts. I got a receipt for all my gas stops, and I calculated how much I spent in gas. Then I went ahead and decided to calculate how I did on mileage and fuel consumption and all that kind of stuff. So a couple things. One, the gas prices I was hoping they'd go lower than they did. The cheapest I think I got was in Texas and Oklahoma. The lowest I got price-wise was about $3.79, $3.80, somewhere in there. So Arizona, New Mexico were in the $4.70, $4.80 range, maybe $4.50, and then Texas, Oklahoma got pretty reasonable. And then Missouri was pretty good, but it started going up a little bit in Missouri. And then in Illinois, it got up to about $5 a gallon. But then Indiana was a little cheaper. Now Indiana, apparently the word on the scuttlebutt in the terms of gas prices, I've heard in a couple resources that say Indiana right now has the cheapest gas prices in the country. And part of the reason, I think, is they're suspending a gas tax here at the moment. And so one station, I just put some gas in the car today. It was a Kroger, it's $3.39 a gallon. And then the Speedways up the street are $3.69. I'm not sure what the Costco is these days right now, up about 10 miles here. 10 miles from where I'm staying. But in any case, the mileage was, so here's the official tally. I filled up, I think, 13 times, and I used, the total price on gas was surprisingly less than I expected. The total amount was basically $480. I think it was $479.25. And that was, like I said, 13 stops, mainly because I have no odometer and no gas gauge. So they just don't work. So I haven't really dug into trying to fix the gas gauge. The speedometer works with the new cable with the 5-speed swap, but the odometer is right now is just sort of is not in the chat at the moment. So, but anyway, I spent under $500 in gas, well under $500, right around $480. I think I said a minute ago, $479.25. And I used, I think it was 109.5 gallons. So let's call it 110 gallons. And if you go on your phone and look at do your mileage from basically Los Angeles, or I started in Burbank, which is just north of downtown LA, to Indianapolis, it was basically 2,080 miles. And so I just rounded it up to 2,100 give or take. I actually took a couple of side roads off the Oklahoma Turnpike because I was going to go visit a friend of mine in Tulsa that I mentioned in those 2 other videos, but I didn't get to him because the timing wasn't right. And in any case, so long story short version, I used 110 gallons and did 2,100 miles. And if you divide divide 2,100 miles by 110 gallons, I basically got 19 miles a gallon, which is absolutely, to me, I was thrilled. I was amazed at how well I did mileage wise. I was really surprised by that. So, and the other thing too, by the way, I was chopping along pretty good. I mean, I was not screwing around. I was cutting the mustard. I was chopping wood big time. Like most of the time, I would say a good portion of the trip, I would say more than half of it, I was doing between 75 and 80 miles an hour the whole way. And so, maybe not the whole way, but the majority of the time I was going at least 75, 70, 75. Many times I was going upwards of 80. Sometimes I was doing 85. Even a couple times I was cruising along at 90, maybe even a little faster than that. So with the 325 gear and the 6.3 overdrive, if you do the math, the final drive ratio is around, I think it's like 205. So, I mean, it's like a fast idle at 70 miles an hour. I mean, you're talking I was just rolling along, and, I think I did the math one time on, this has an old tack in it, but, I was going, and the speedometer seems to be pretty accurate. I was turning $2,000, maybe 2,200 most of the time, and I was figuring that was right around 75 to 80 miles an hour. So, one of the things I thought about is that if I had kept it down around 70, maybe 70, if I was cruising 65, 70 all the time, most of the time, and I wasn't doing that because, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, Panhandle, other than Amarillo, and Oklahoma, other than through Oklahoma City, and some of the places on the Oklahoma Turnpike, the speed limit is 80. But in those 4 states, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, and Oklahoma, the majority of the time the speed limit is 75. So I wasn't going to go 65 or 70. I was going to go right along. But if I had kept my speed down to around 70, I believe there might have been a reasonable chance I could have pulled down 20 miles a gallon. And that's not bad for a carbureted small block, a carbureted 289 with a kind of crummy old 600 Holly on it that's probably not tuned as ideally as it could be. But in any case, there you have it. 2,100 miles, 110 gallons. I pulled down a solid 19 miles a gallon. And before I calculated, I didn't think in my mind, I was thinking I'd be lucky to get 17, but I did quite a bit better than that. So anyway, I made it. Car ran like a Swiss watch. I went to the Indy 500. Those of you that are interested in IndyCar racing, you might have heard it was the closest finish in Indy 500 history, not even 0.2 of a second, so about a quarter car length at 220 miles an hour. Felix Rosenquist squeaked by David Malukas. And prior to that, the closest finish ever was Al Unser Jr. Got 0.4 of a second on Scott Goodyear in the 1992 Indy 500. So that's it. I made it. That's the story. So let me show you a little bit on the car that I hadn't showed you before. And I'm digging this little hot rod, although it's not much of a hot rod. So I told you in one of the videos I was going to show you inside, so let me do that. So this door is not the right color. It's primered goofy, but it still has, believe it or not, the original door tag, which is kind of cool. I don't know if you can stop and read it, but this car was built in San Jose. It's an F code, which means it's a 260 two-barrel. And one of the things that I kind of like about this car is there's no headliner, no door panels, and no carpet. So it's kind of Spartan. It's sort of, it's very old school. I'm not all that worried about appearances in here. No door panels. Oh, and you can see my custom window crank on the passenger grips. And, the regulator works great, but the teeth, the splines for the window crank are stripped. So that's my custom setup there. And I got a Lecero wheel that I've had on about 8 or 10 different cars. And then the big thing I did on this car is I had the seat recovered. And so that made a big difference overall. Just, the whole, it was something that, the appearance of it is nice, but mainly for me, it was the functionality of it. So it was kind of both. It goes hand in hand. I'm not all that worried about what things on this car look like. I'm just more interested in how it functions, how the car runs, how the car drives. New fuel pump. I put a new starter. And like I just said earlier, I put a new battery in it yesterday. And but the dash on it is pretty good. It still has all the original radio, original pad with its included cracks. Somebody put a Pioneer head unit, which is kind of cool. I can play the radio. There's the 5-speed shifter. It's a real nice Hurst shifter with the black ball. That's all modern driveline stuff. The boot was here when I bought the car with its original, when it had a T10 4-speed. Not original. I think this car had a 2-speed Ford-O-Matic, which is kind of like a Ford version of a GM Power Glide. It's a 2-speed. According to the door tag, I think this car was originally an automatic. And when I bought it, or somebody before I bought it, swapped a T10 4-speed into it. So it has the cheapo Sun Pro gauges there. They work great. I got an auto gauge low buck tack that works just fine. I was in the car when I bought it. It still has the original visors, which is kind of cool. I don't know how you can see them. And so the interior, that's about it on the interior. There's not much else to talk about. Oh, I do have the fresh moon-equipped sticker on the dashboard above the key on the left side, by the way. So that moon equipped, by the way, that's worth 2 miles an hour when I take it to the track. So let me pop open the hood for you again, which I did in the first video, but I'm gonna do it again. Oh, and how about the hood, the fender mounted rear view mirror? And I've had everybody tell me a different story on that. Oh, that's not right. Oh, that's wrong. Oh, that's the wrong mirror. It's from a Lincoln. It's this and that. And I think it might be a dealer installed deal, or maybe that was the way it was. It was installed, dealer installed. I've had a couple people tell me that, mounted on the fender rather than on the door. And the other thing, you probably wouldn't see it now because it's kind of starting to get dark, but it's got a joystick. It's a remote mirror, so which is kind of a hoot. So because it's hard to reach it when it's that far forward out the window. Still has the original little chrome pieces on the hood, on the fenders, with the medallion on this one side, the Ford crest. The other side, it fell out, so it's missing. I might try to get another one of those sometime. Let me pop open the hood here and talk about some stuff under here. Ain't much to see, although it is, it's a 289 small block, and it's all here as far as I can tell. Boy, it sure ran like it does. I got this radiator from one of my buddies. It was in another car. It was in another Falcon, but the guy didn't like it because it didn't look original. I don't really give a rat's ass about that. There's my fresh new Walmart battery, a Group 26 for about $80 with a $12 core. And this is kind of cool. This shows the original VIN. What is it now? 3R17F. So 3 meaning a 63, R means it's a San Jose built car like Mustangs. Anything code R, the second character R is San Jose for Mustangs, F was Dearborn, and T was Metuchen, New Jersey. And 17 is the Falcon two-door hardtop, probably would be a Sprint or a Futura, and the letter F means a two-barrel. A 260, a V8 260 two-barrel. If this were a 6-cylinder car, it would probably be a T or a U. But when it's an F, that means it's an original V8 car. And that's one of the main reasons I bought this car. A couple other little tidbits. It has the springs. The hood and the hinges have springs in place. And I've been told that 6-cylinder cars have no springs and a prop rod. So that's kind of another thing to delineate a V8 car. And there's the top of the hood. Nothing to see there, although there was a little bit of I guess there was a little carb fire one day. You can really see it right there. It's kind of cool. So that's about it. I think I said in the first video, these are 14-inch wheels from 68, 69 Mustang and Torino, and maybe other Fords, maybe some of the Mercury equivalent stuff. But these wheels are very, pretty much were on a number of 68 and 69 Mustangs, which is kind of interesting because, 68, 67, 8 Mustangs were the same and then were identical basically. And then the 69 70s were very similar as well. but these wheels came out in 68. They never came on 67s, and then they used them in 69, like in Mach 1s and maybe some plain Jane cars. I think maybe also on the 69 GTs, keeping in mind that these did not come on a Boss 302 or a Boss 429. These are 14-inch wheels, and all Mustangs had 14-inch wheels. I believe 65. Well, there would have been some plain Jane K-codes with 15-inch Steelies and the Shelbys. But for the most part, mostly almost all 65 to 70 Mustangs had 14-inch wheels. And as far as I know, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the only Mustangs that had 15-inch wheels were 69, 70 Boss 302s and Boss 429s that had the 15-inch Magnum 500s. I'm fairly certain of that, but I'm not going to go as far as to say that I'm 100% correct and then I am absolutely right and anybody else says otherwise is wrong. You could say in the comments if you think I'm wrong, but I'm fairly certain that the only Mustangs 65 to 70s that came with 15-inch wheels were Boss 302 and Boss 429. So that's it. I made it. I made it from Indy. I thought it was a little harebrained to think about driving something this old and this all kinds of stuff from California to Indianapolis, but I went ahead and did it. And I'm tickled pink with how the car ran. I mean, the thing, I swear to God, it really did run like a Swiss watch. When I was getting on the highways and, run it up a little bit in fourth gear, and I'm thinking to myself, boy, could you imagine doing this? Running 2,800, $3,000 to go 70 miles an hour and get run off the road and probably get lucky to get 15 miles a gallon. And then I'd click it into fifth gear, and I was just absolutely thrilled with that. So it really is something incredible to be able to do that. And it just totally transforms the whole car. And, I talk to people all the time, and I'm always kind of preaching the gospel of a 5-speed swap or an AOD in an automatic car. Or ideally, and some people are like, oh, I'll keep my top loader, or I'll keep my M21 in my Chevrolet, Camaro, Chevelle, Corvette. I'll keep my M20. And it's like, you don't know what you're missing. I have a 5-speed in my 69 Mustang, which I'll show here sometime. And, I will try to show that car. I've only had the thing for 23 years, and I've never done a video on it, so I'm a little overdue on that. But the 5-speed swap on these is just completely transforms the whole car. When you click the thing click the thing into fifth gear, and you start going like the wind in the left lane, blowing by all the rigs and all the people in their SUVs and Civics and Corollas and 4Runners and Explorers and Suburbans and whatever else they're driving. And I blow by them, and this, what some people don't know what they're looking at. What's that smoldering pile of doo-doo? But I'm sure there was a couple people were like, how on earth is he going by me at 80 miles an hour on that thing when it looks like it's heading straight for the boneyard? But so that kind of goes to the point being, I even had a couple people talk to me today, are you going to paint it? You going to cherry it out? And the answer really is kind of no. Mainly for me, the main element on this car was to concentrate on the mechanical element and not worry so much about the cosmetic stuff. I'll pop open this door just for fun. And so, what I did is I found this car up front. I wanted a hardtop. I wanted a 63 hardtop. Well, it actually just kind of popped into my feed. I really wasn't looking for it per se, but I found it, and it was like, okay, it's a hardtop, 63 hardtop. Okay, it's a V8 car. Okay, I want it. I want it bad. Oh my God, it's a 4-speed. It's already got a T10 4-speed in it with a clutch pedal and all that stuff. I don't have to chase down a clutch pedal. Although if it was an automatic, I would have put it. If it was a C4 or a Ford-O-Matic 2-speed, I would have put an AOD in it. But it already had the 4-speed, so the 5-speed was just a no-brainer to my mind. So the V8 hardtop 4-speed car, the V8 and the hardtop were pretty much what I wanted, and the 4-speed was absolute gravy. So it took me about 2 months to pry it away from the seller. At first he didn't want it. I don't know if I'm going to sell it. I might store it in my storage in my tent. But lucky for you, my girlfriend hates it. So lucky for you, that'll be great. So I got home from a long trip in the summer of 23, and I got in touch with the guy and said, hey, can I come down and look at it? Down near San Diego. I think it was in Vista or San Marcos, between Carlsbad and Escondido. And so I got there and basically said to the guy, here's your money. And I had a truck from work and I rented a U-Haul trailer, bring a trailer, and loaded it up and brought it home. And it'll be 3 years in September. And if you look around on my channel, you'll see the gold 66 Fairlane that I had. And that car was one of my most beloved cars I've ever owned. I mean, I've owned over 20 Mustangs. I've had 6 or 7 Fairlanes. This is my 3rd Falcon. And I've had a bunch of Corvettes. I've had a couple Chevelles. I've had a couple. I've had 2 64 Galaxies. I've had 2 Pontiac G8s. I've had 2 Cadillac CTS-Vs, a V1 and a V2. The V2 is the fastest car I've ever had. By the way, you can see it in like my first video at Lansing Grand River. So I've had a bunch of stuff, and that Fairlane, I love that car. I love that car more than just about anything I've ever owned. But in all honesty, I can maybe say I love the Fairlane more than this car. But the truth is I'm having more fun with this car than I had with the Fairlane. The Fairlane was kind of stressful. It had a hot small block. It had a reverse manual valve body C4. It had a 9-inch locker. It had skinny front tires on it. It was, pretty loose converter. It had a big 244 at 50 cam. It was, high strung, didn't really do anything unless you stood on it. It didn't turn to save its life, but I didn't care because it was street strip sort of, it was a Saturday night shaker type of car. This is more of a cruiser. This is like get in it and drive it anywhere. And when I say anywhere, drive it from California to Indiana, or from California to Florida, or from Florida to Seattle, or from Maine to San Diego. You name it, this car will do it. I've already proved it'll do that. And so it's kind of cool. I mean, it's not any reflection of me. It's just a reflection of the car itself. And I did a few things to make it roadworthy. I put new tires on it. I think I mentioned in the video, the radial TAs, 2 1560s in front, 2 35s in back. So it's got a nice stance to it. But the major item I did was the 5-speed swap. And it wasn't cheap with the 5-speed from Modern Driveline, the adapter plate, the bell housing, not the bell housing. It was originally used the original narrow pattern 5-bolt bell, the adapter plate and the cross member, the yoke and the speedometer cable and all that stuff. And then not on top of all that, I had to have a new drive shaft made. I have found a drive shaft place down in Gardena called Drive Shaft Pros. I actually got a brand new steel drive shaft made for about $350. So, but the whole project, and I installed it myself with a buddy of mine at work. I was working with, and still do to some degree, with OVC Mustang. You can look it up online, ovcmustangs.com. You can also look at the cars on Jay Leno's Garage. We have a fastback and a roadster. But me and my good friend Terry, we did the 5-speed swap ourselves on a lift at our shop in Gardena. And we had the transmission in about 5 or 6 hours. And then I had another good friend of mine help me with the Z-bar, the clutch linkage of my buddy Rory in Simi Valley, Rory Fontana. He's got a shop called Fontana Motorsports, and he's a bit of a savant. He can pretty much work on anything. And, if you need help with a car in California, Rory can probably help you fix it. If he doesn't fix it himself, he'll know somebody that can fix it. In any case, I did all that stuff, and it wasn't cheap. The whole thing cost me over $5,000. It was about, by the time I factored in the drive shaft and all the parts from Modern Driveline and the running around, I had to have the threads in the bell re-tapped, and they needed to be cleaned up a little bit. That was another $100. So overall, in the end, it cost me about $5,000. But you know what? To my mind, because I'm a little bit of a crazy sort of a wackadoodle, to me, it's worth it. It was totally worth it. And if I wanted to jump in this car and drive it back to California right now, I would. But for now, I'm going to leave it in Indiana and take it to the cruise nights. And there's a bunch of really good ones here in the Indianapolis area. One of them is Suds, which is a little diner down in Greenwood, which is south of downtown Indy. That's a really fun one. And there's a couple of other ones too that are really good. You know, of course, the car culture in Indianapolis specifically, is pretty strong. There's also a major racing culture here, naturally because of the Speedway and Indianapolis Raceway Park, where they do the U.S. Nationals, which is, you know, the Indy 500 of drag racing. Any drag racer, you ask them what race do they want to win, they want to win Indy. So that's enough blathering. That's it. I made it. Car ran like a Swiss watch, and I couldn't be more happy with it. And I'm just absolutely thrilled. I hope you enjoyed all this, and I hope maybe if there's something you didn't know, maybe you learned. And like and subscribe, which is the typical battle cry these days. But more importantly, I hope you enjoyed it, and most importantly, thanks for watching.